Welcome to Nerd News Now for November 7th, 2018. Rick Grimes is done on The Walking Dead. In other news, Rick Grimes returns for The Walking Dead. Also, happy birthday, Mickey. He's been around for 90, looking pretty good. Also in comics this week, Green Lantern by Grant Morrison and Marvel Knights 20th by Donny Cates. Big week in comics. We'll talk about all that and more on Nerd News Now. Hi, and welcome to Nerd News Now for November 7th, 2018. I'm Mark, along with Miss Jen and Ashford, as always. Guys, this is election week. On Tuesday, the fate of a lot of things were decided, but we'll talk about that as it relates to comics and movies and popular culture coming up in a second. But we'll start out with the news portion, jumping to TV. So The Walking Dead for months and months, starting at San Diego Comic-Con, was teasing the demise / departure / exit / whatever of Rick Grimes, who has been very popularized in that form by Andrew Lincoln over the last 9 years or so. Rick Grimes is, front and center in both the show and the comic. So I've been wondering for a while, really, what's the point of going on without that character? And so they've been teasing this whole thing, and everyone's trying to figure out, does he die? Does he just leave? Is this, is it like a Lost type situation where it's just going to turn out to be heaven? Is it a St. Elsewhere situation where he's just in a snow globe full of zombies or what? But so here's, spoiler is free. It was his last episode of Walking Dead, but it wasn't his last appearance on AMC as Rick Grimes. And you're wondering, well, how can that possibly happen? Well, Scott Gimple announced on Talking Dead right after they're going to do Walking Dead movies now on AMC. And now, because his point was kind of like that, this TV show has had such a huge budget over the years, and TV in general has crazy budgets. Game of Thrones and The Crown are the last two to set the records per episode budget on HBO and Netflix respectively. But AMC has been, since Breaking Bad, really since Mad Men, right, has been at the forefront of this sort of revolution against the networks and the big budget dramas, and really going all in on a few shows like Mad Men, like Breaking Bad, like Walking Dead. And so essentially, Rick Grimes does leave the show, but his story, the gaps are going to be filled in with 3 different movies.
That they are on AMC?
They're going to be on AMC. They're going to be produced by AMC and run on AMC. Now, I'm almost wondering, just because I'm kind of seeing the way things are going from a TV perspective, is it going to be a situation where we have all this awesome stuff coming? Oh, by the way, just coincidentally, not because of the awesome stuff, but just coincidentally, if you would like to pay $4.95 to see it on a streaming service. Because I'm just thinking at some point, everyone's having the streaming services. The DC Universe launch. Yep. Marvel's is going to be next year. Obviously, Hulu, Amazon, and Netflix have been going strong. So that makes me a little bit skeptical. I think it was sort of like a cash grab move as far as you're teasing the demise of this character that you've been following for 9 years, and then it's oh, he's fine, but he's not there anymore. So one thing that I'm curious is how are they going to explain his departure to the other characters? But again, I said I would keep it spoiler free, so there's a big answer to that. But what is your guys' thought as far as, so you take this character off the TV show, but he's not really gone because you had to tease that he left the show, but he didn't. And then now the ability for AMC to make these high production movies on TV that people will probably watch. Yeah. But with such a big event as the lead character leaving a show, it still had barely a ratings increase, maybe 200,000 or 300,000 people. And it's had a significant drop off. There was a time not too long ago where tens of millions of people watch the show, and now it's down to like 5.4, 5.1. So, one, what do you think of the idea to kind of keep going with that character, with the show without that character, and then TV shows just becoming kind of movies on the side?
Let's be clear. Even going down to 5 point, that's a really successful non-network show.
Absolutely.
So I don't think they're sad about that. I think what I heard from Kirkman specifically with this, that they had years and years of material to go. Like they get 10 years, they're fine. So I don't think that it's the end for it. I think they have made significant changes between the comic books and the show already. So they could have another character come up to kind of, I don't want to say takes its place, because that's not really fair to say. But is as important to people to be watching it going forward to keep their audience.
Yeah, I mean, one thing is that you could always have a Grimes take the lead. Doesn't have to be Rick, but
flash forward and have the daughter.
I didn't say I was going to spoil anything.
Look, okay.
But I can't help it if
totally
something. I can't help it if something were to be spoiled. But now, Ashford, what do you think about that as far as like opening up the universes? Now there's rumors of a Breaking Bad movie, so that would obviously be one they could jump to. There was been rumors of a Sopranos movie, even though James Gandolfini passed away a few years ago. For example, one show that might have been able to have some interesting stories is The Wire. So do you like this idea of, instead of a hard reboot or a relaunch, of maybe just making movies on the side that didn't really affect the universe or the outcome?
Yeah, I know with British television they do that, where a TV show will end and like they'll do Christmas specials here and now. Yeah. We see that with Psych.
Luther did that, right? Luther basically just like, oh, we're gonna have 3 episodes again. It's fine.
I think that's a good thing as far as, a lot of thing with binge culture is also like, I'm going to get caught up with this. I just turned 21 and I'm making my own money. I can get caught up on something or buy a box set, right, that I've always heard about. There's something on Facebook where I think it's called like Happy Magazine, but they do a good job of like, hey, you ever heard of Pink Floyd? You always hear about it, right? Mm-hmm. And they'll do a quick little 5-minute synopsis of everything you need to know about Pink Floyd. Ooh, well, that's happening in every media. Like, what do I need to know about Swamp Thing? What do I need to know about Breaking Bad? Yeah. And they'll sum it up. So, like, you might think, well, I saw Breaking Bad, I'm done with that. But it's another new crop of people coming up. Maybe I'm 31, but I am now getting into cable television. Mm-hmm. I'm getting now into, like, program television or, like, things where it has, like, a following. Like, I'm getting into following television.
Yes.
So I heard that Breaking Bad was something to watch. So, yeah, I think definitely, like, you branch out, you just go, we have the extra money, like you were saying, like going from 10 million to 5 million. Yep. Also, the 10 million to 5 million, is that a rating from an overnight? Or is that when you find out, once we get the streaming, they watch it on the streaming device, and 2 weeks down the line, you get that rate, and then it bounced up to 8 million. So, oh yeah, all this is worth it.
I think my biggest excitement this week in regard to that, things that were shows that announced that they're going to do movies, was they announced Deadwood.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard about that too.
HBO 10 characters returning.
HBO is so cinematic. All their shows are so cinematic, and we haven't really seen exactly how they're going to handle Game of Thrones, but we know that there's spinoffs in the works. We assume that they're going to be on HBO weekly, maybe like an 8-episode runs at a time. But remember, this happened in the 80s in a different way, because especially like on TGIF, everybody went to Disney World. And then like the Bradys went to Hawaii. Vincent Price was the guest star. If you haven't seen that, YouTube.
Exchange suitcases.
Exchanging suitcases. Like all those kind of like Facts of Life did it. Like there was one of the sitcoms where they would get mixed up in business with like international spies and like be at risk of death. Not really. I mean, not really, but one of the people would make a comment like, "Well, you better take care of this." But that happened on the Brady Bunch where the blueprints were messed up. But there was that Hawaii episode where Vincent Price was mad because they found like this cursed tiki, and Peter almost got bit by the spider. Alice threw her back out, and Greg almost died surfing. So it's not like this is a new thing. And Saved by the Bell did what, 2 movies?
Yes.
So they did like actual, it would come on NBC from like 8 to 10, and then it would be cut up and re-aired Saturday mornings after that.
So another thing with that is, we see this with also you have 2 generations that are involved in this. So with Fuller House, Girl Meets World, where like I'm 38, so I want to watch it because I watched it as a kid, and then I don't know anything about the old version. I'm just watching it because I see a kid on there now. But new dynamics happen. So I remember one time the creators, I can't remember his name is Ed Burns, but of The Wire, someone mentioned like, hey, in Baltimore, there's like a new Latino population that come through there. And he was like, well, I used to be a beat writer and a cop there. I don't know about that now, but I would like to research it. So, that might take 5 years to do because that show is all about being authentic. So after my 5 years, I'm ready to tell that story now. That's why I would have a separate movie for this show because we're ready to tell that story now. And we might see that with a bunch of stuff.
I think so.
Yeah. I think the main difference to kind of look at is that this is happening while the show's still going on.
Yeah.
So where does that put the other characters and stuff? I will say that they showed an extended preview. I thought it was weird. This was only episode 5. I thought it was weird that they didn't wait to do the mid-season finale because they usually do 8, take the winter break, and then do another 8 for 16 total. I thought it was weird. I'm like, well, you'll have 3 episodes left. Didn't you want to wait to like get those ratings or whatever? And it was just the ghost of TV's past. It was fine. But now I will say that they showed an extended trailer for the last 3 episodes of The Fall, and it looks really good. But it will be interesting to see, like, there's this pocket side universe going on. In other TV news, one of the big things that happened is, DC launched their streaming service. Titans is up and running. Swamp Thing has now announced that Derek Mears will be playing the title character of Swamp Thing. You'll know him, but won't know him at all because he is a 6'5" stuntman character actor type. He played Jason in the reboots. He played a Predator in Predators. So they got a big hulking guy to play Swamp Thing. So that'll be interesting. I'm still on the fence as to whether should y'all have done a live action version. But I'm pretty sure with CG and with makeup and depending on who does it, it's gonna be good.
All I know is that the hunt for those back issues, Alan Moore especially, is like on. Like we don't have anything left.
I think that was one of those runs where it was overlooked for a long time, and then once Watchmen came back into popularity with the movie, I think people were like, Alan Moore, what else has he done? And then Killing Joke, that always comes up, controversial or otherwise. But I think that is one of the kind of lost treasures of comics, but now apparently people found it. But yeah.
Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, interesting stuff. And there's a part where Constantine, right?
Yeah.
He tells him like, hey, dude, you're a network with plant life. Mm-hmm. You can just zap anywhere and get information. Basically in the 80s, bringing up the internet.
He's the internet.
Yeah. So, cool stuff. Yeah, I highly recommend getting those Alan Moore Swamp Thing stories. Pretty weird, wild stuff.
And I have to check it out, but this would be smart. That might be one of the things that's available through the app now.
Because people can go back and
because it's like $7.99 a month. But the big appeal of that one is the library of DC Comics. And people were wondering how is that going to be affected and open up because they're not going to give you everything at once. They're obviously not going to give you the new issues that they're charging $3, sometimes $4 for now digitally. But I think that's one thing to look out for if you see that. And of course, like as far as like something you can hold, I'm sure they're going to re-release the trades too. Like you would think leading up to that.
Yeah,
right.
And give us new cover art or something.
Yeah. So that'd be an interesting character. That'll be really something that'll be something that will make the app, worth it or not, I think. If they can keep up with, haven't heard too much about Titans, but we'll just see if that opens up their universe. So we had all the politicalness, let's just say, of this week, right? Election Tuesday, the primaries. So it made me start to think about how, politics can be a very divisive topic. It can be something like people do not like politics and sports mixed. There's varying opinions about that, but I was thinking about as far as popular culture, if you do it well, it's awesome. And if you do it into where it's not like heavy-handed opinions, it's awesome because at the end of the day, I mean, politics are just going to be involved in these stories. I mean, if you think about Batman and all the ties to the mob and Joker and Harvey Dent, and especially with, with the story of Harvey Dent in the Christopher Nolan series, I mean, like, it's just a natural thing that is just going to be involved because you're talking about this living, breathing city, but politics is going to be like the lifeblood of it, and people are going to try to control that. So with that being said, Miss Jen, let's start with you. What is something that would fit that theme in comics? Like maybe favorite politician, least favorite politician, or just political storyline?
Simple for me. So during Secret Empire, you have this whole storyline where Strange and Fisk and a bunch of other people get stuck under this dark forest dome in Manhattan. Basically, they're there for a long time. Fisk goes out of his way to like coordinate relief efforts and make sure everyone gets food, society doesn't go fall apart into there. And you know he's up to something. You just know it, but he's just like, he seems to be so altruistic in the whole situation. Well, once all that situation ended, he ran and won the mayor's office. So Fisk's the mayor of... Anyway, that's brilliant storytelling because you're just waiting for the ball to drop at any moment. He's got his strings all set.
Yeah, and I was checking something on my phone. I wasn't being rude. And my friend Kevin Federkowski, I don't even know if he knows I do this, but he went to a comic book sale and he's reading something from Constantine in the 80s. And he goes, in these panels, a demon fused together 4 biggest skinheads into a 4-headed monster. Constantine fools them into fighting and killing each other based on the football team they have tattooed on them. That's how he defeats them. Read comics for 30 years and never read anything like that. So, like all the vitriol you see in like the news today, nothing new, still here. All that angst that we saw from the 80s, and maybe we might get hit by a nuclear bomb, will be just fine. So when people go like, I don't want really politics in my comics, it's too late. It's already been there. Like whenever X-Men came out, politics are in your comics. Yes. When you read Superman: The Golden Age, and he's kind of taking on big business. That's 1930s. Politics are in your comics.
Civil War storyline.
Yeah, you just can't escape. So,
what about you, Ashford? What would be one of your favorite either storylines or characters? I know that you brought up a lot Star Wars and just like kind of how obviously Senator Palpatine becomes Emperor Palpatine. You have like that Galactic Senate, and you of course have the Rebel Alliance and all that stuff.
Just on the nose, yes.
Right.
So and I was telling Mark this as far as like episodes 1 through 3, it actually helped me understand Star Wars more, and I just kind of appreciate that thing of when I was a kid watching episodes 4 through 6. You thought, oh, Darth Vader just took over one day, and with that they showed you like, no, it was a slow-moving coup, and he did it legally. I don't want to really get into all that. And then, like, we were talking about Ex Machina with Brian K. Vaughan.
Yeah.
One thing I liked about that, he gives you the history of, and this is a true story, about, like, the curse of the Brooklyn Bridge. Like, a dude he built it, he ended up getting sick, gave it plans for the son. The son got sick, and then I can't remember if it was the son's mom or his wife. She actually finished the plans and was the first one to walk across the Brooklyn Bridge. Well, like with Brian K. Vaughan, he did that whole thing of, I'm going to give you pop culture, I'm going to give you humor and drama, and I'm going to give you some history, rinse and repeat. So, Ex Machina was a good political comment.
Yes,
right?
Yeah, because it was doing the Brian K. Vaughan thing of present day versus flashback, and then it centered, all around 9/11. And then I guess mentioning that, remember the issue of Spider-Man that had the black cover.
Yes.
Even though that was an event, like obviously that is a politically polarizing event because it leads to other things. I think also back to the Marvel Universe, remember during Dark Reign, Norman Osborn, and he was being super manipulative too because he had just helped out everyone after Secret Invasion, but he was doing that to kind of gain momentum, moving forward to be able to do what he wanted. And then he developed the Dark Avengers, where you had all these villains as, you know, superheroes, and everyone else was on the run. And then Lex Luthor in the DC universe, right, Ashford?
Yeah. So, you know, in the DC universe, Lex Luthor becomes president, I think around late 90s, early 2000s. And I'm featured on this podcast, DC OCD, where I'm going to talk about Batman No Man's Land. And you end up finding out, like, at first it seemed like, you know, Gotham suffers an earthquake. You end up finding out it's man-made. But it's like, that seems kind of random. But now with the natural disasters, you know, Houston, we're dealing with, you go through the disaster and then that aftermath of the nothingness, you know, you have to get to know your neighbor. Very relevant stuff. And it gets into that whole thing of, man, that's sad that a city was destroyed. But, oh, yes, as developers, we can go in and build stuff now and make money. And so capitalizing on people's tragedy. Once again, political. So you can't escape it.
And that Batman's No Man's Land, that reminds me of the Fisk storyline, too. Because you had this thing where basically people were enclosed in, and then you had to develop this barter system and establish, like, you know, currency and a hierarchy and all this stuff. So I just think, especially with people like Lex Luthor, people like Wilson Fisk, it's ultimately just going to lead down that path because it's a power struggle. And that's sort of what, like, that political landscape, that's what it can be. And that's in the comic side. And the TV side, I mean, there's obviously heavy-handed stuff like House of Cards, but that's back for its last season. Claire took over. So that's cool. It's cool anytime, you know, you have that female president. And for the lighter side of that, you have Veep, and that's it, going into its last season. So.
Yeah, and with Veep, it's kind of crazy where it gets to the point where we're trying to do political satire, but we can't really out-satire the reality. So it's like, what do we do?
And that's what happened with House of Cards. Other than the scandal, you know, with the lead, that's what happened with House of Cards. Is at first it was like, well, this is crazy. This could never happen. And then it happened in real life. And then they're like, well, we can't really top this. And we were talking before about, you know, SNL has had a huge comeback. And I didn't mean to use the word huge like that.
You totally did.
But it's been primarily because, like, man, these political skits, they're so easy to write.
Yeah.
I mean, to the point of just having people read word for word some of the stuff that's going on.
And I think it's happened ever since Tina Fey came back to play the character. So not even recent years. I think even back from there to now. Yeah. The turnaround. I'm just so impressed with the turnaround with the writers. You know, it's not like, you know, something happened. Give me 25 days and we'll come up with something. Something might happen Friday night and they got to do something Saturday night.
I'm so rich with material right now.
Yeah. And I think one advantage they might have, and this goes for kind of anything political, is that you get to see people's responses to the actual reality, you know, climate instantly with Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. So you're able to push out these ideas that you wouldn't have normally had in the past 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. Where, you know, and it's not, because used to, it'd be like, let's just have Captain America punch Hitler and be done with it. But now it's very, you know, subversive. It can be like a long, you know, long drawn out storylines and stuff that is very, not on the nose, but just very, like, people have a very good pulse on things. But that concludes our political part of this, so we'll get back to lighthearted stuff.
Political.
Yeah, I mean, just a little, but it is a big undercurrent in writing and literature, and we all know that comics and pop culture, even though people use it to escape, they still use it to kind of get a pulse on things.
Right.
And so sometimes it's going to be serious. But to be serious for a second, we'll be right back on Nerd News Now right after this.
Football season is here, and Woodlands Online Sports is back better than ever. Watch all the action on KVQT 21 Houston and woodlandsonline.com.
For home repairs, call John Moore, where quality is guaranteed. If the problem returns, so will we. No extra charge.
Call John, get more. 730-2525.
All right, welcome back. It's November, guys. So in November, 90 years ago, November 18th.
I
Steamboat
was
Willie.
really young.
Yeah. No, come on.
I was so young when I was born. That's George Harrison.
Yeah. So, but back on November 18th, 90 years ago, Mickey Mouse was born in Steamboat Willie. Now, have you guys seen that short?
Oh yeah.
Clips.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's
But-
just embedded in our brains as far as like, okay, this is when Mickey was born. Well, you know, Funko has been releasing pop vinyls, merchandise for a while, you know, gearing up for this. They have like all these variants, black and white variants, multicolor variants. I don't really understand when they do the multicolor variants of like, why do I need a neon blue, you know, and pink
They do
Mickey
with
Mouse?
Batman too.
I want a
Yeah.
gold one. I want that gold Batman.
Well, I will say with Batman, for some reason that looks really cool if you just do
Rainbow
like
Batmans?
rainbow, just line them up
Mm-hmm.
on like a color scheme, and I guess if you have like school colors, you know, maybe having a Batman,
Yeah.
you know, and like Sam Houston State blue and orange or SMU red and blue, that would be pretty cool. But so Disney did their official celebration on Sunday. ABC had a 2-hour special. So they had the whole thing, you know, the history. They have like new Mickey and Minnie costumes in the park where their faces move. What do you guys think about that? As far as like mascots where their faces can move, do you think that would freak out people more or less?
Are they trying to match maybe the current cartoons for the kids?
It might be. I mean, I
'Cause then
think
it wouldn't be creepy if it looks like those guys.
I mean, I guess it kind of would be creepy if there's all these rules about mascots, and I don't know what the official rules at Disney's are currently, but I would assume that you're not really allowed to talk anyway.
Oh,
You know.
guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but now with that, maybe you are. Like, would it be worse to see someone talk and the face not move, or a 6-foot mouse that's talking? I mean, I don't know. But
Yeah.
but I would think either way, you know, that's one of the big attractions at Disney is seeing all your favorite characters dressed up and all that. Well, they had they had a 2-hour special, so they talked about the history. They talked about Steamboat Willie, showed that, and then they also had probably required by Disney employees, but they had shout outs from people like Tom Holland who plays Spider-Man, and just sort of talking about the importance. Well, probably. I mean,
The mouse requires.
it's on the company dime, but yeah, the mouse commands you. But I think that's cool. That character has been so long standing. I can't really think of any other character that's so synonymous with a company.
Right.
I mean, you do have, Looney Tunes and Bugs Bunny, which is Warner Brothers, but other than that, I mean, that's a long time.
It is 90 years.
And Disney is so embedded in society. I mean, back in the 90s, they made a hockey team based on one of their movies,
Right.
the Mighty Ducks. So, I mean, and then Angels in the outfield, and then they bought the Angels, moved them to Anaheim. I mean, it's just, it's a crazy thing, but Miss Jen, we'll start with you. What is your personal experience with Disney? Like maybe the favorite thing or just something that you remember that's still going strong, or just something that maybe even you see that has affected, kids or just society for many years?
I will share something really cool. My family has a real deep personal connection with the actual theme park. My grandfather was one of the carpenters on Main Street.
That is awesome.
So my mom, as a young person, got to go into the park way before it was open. They were there the week before when they had the, employee-only grand opening, and she spent most of her teenage years in the park because they had passes forever. I mean, it was back when you had the ticketed system where you had to go in, like, I have an A ticket, and like, I only have C tickets left, and those are all horrible. All I can do is ride like the teacups or whatever. But yeah, she is huge. Like, she talks about it all the time, as parents will, about their favorite memories. She talks about that a lot, about the joy of getting to go as teenagers in the park, and they'd have like these really late midnight things all the time. So yeah, so Disney is important to my family for sure.
And for myself, like a kid growing up in the 80s, my first experience really with Disney is, I can't remember the name as far as Mickey Mouse Club, Frankie, but they did those surfer movies in the 60s.
Oh, Frankie and Rudy Valley.
Yes, and as a kid, they did one of those like Return Back to the Beach.
Mhm.
And I was really like, I like surfer culture, like with Gidget and Return of Gidget, and with that. So really, my experience with Disney as a little kid was watching those surfer movies. Yeah.
And you remember that Paul Rubens scene with "Bird is the word"?
Bird is the word. Yeah, and that's how I learned about Bird is the word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Paul Rubens on a surfboard. I can't remember if he was dressed like Pee Wee or not.
But you know what? This is how I learned about the Stars Over Bright. So Deep in the Heart of Texas
Right.
was through the Pee Wee Herman movie.
Yeah.
That was the first time I ever heard of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because the Pee Wee's Big Adventure, that was the third movie I ever rented. Pinocchio,
Wow.
that's Disney. Pinocchio, so that's my first experience really. Pinocchio, then Pee Wee's Big Adventure was second, and Back to the Future was three. Those are my first three movies I ever rented
Wow.
on VHS.
Killer
Yeah.
Tomatoes was, I think, my first VHS.
Colored
Was
Tomatoes.
Was that disappointing?
No,
Or were
it
you
was
just
awesome.
like,
it was
this is awesome?
hilarious.
Now,
So funny.
in the Return of the Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, that was George Clooney's first film role.
I totally
didn't realize that.
remember that.
Yeah, I don't know if it was the first one, but that's the one people go back and look at and go, "Wait a minute,"
Yeah.
because that
was
also
when they were
happened with
paper
like
mache tomatoes.
one of the Critters movies, either 3 or 4. That was Leo DiCaprio.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah.
Oh, no, not 3 and 4, no.
But
I saw one of them at the theater.
right,
Cinema.
and so unlike Blockbuster, I think Disney's going to keep going for a while.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. But
Another 90.
yeah,
They'll be here longer than us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just, and you think about like the Disney princesses and the legacy that they've left, and then of course also with Frozen, and just from a musical aspect. I mean, I don't know of any other entity that really like has that as far as just the songs associated with the films and movies, and just kind of always around. And then Disney is just always there. So I guess if you don't like it, I don't know what life is like for you, but I mean, it's just like Mickey and Minnie are just always in our peripheral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just everywhere. Another thing that's everywhere lately, it seems, is good comics, right?
Really good.
I mean,
comics. Oh my gosh.
And now here's what's interesting. So the big two, Marvel and DC, they're putting 2 of their biggest writers on big new projects.
Yes.
So Miss Jen will let you take the lead on this one, but the big two, we'll start with DC Comics Green Lantern, and it's going to be written by Grant Morrison.
So they let him loose on this title, and I'm glad they did. So it's Hal Jordan back, because they wrapped up the Hal Jordan and the Green Lanterns. I think the last issue was the end of that. So this is the new launch. So this whole storyline where it becomes Parallax, that's important to what you're going to be reading if you go get that book tomorrow, which you should. Oh gosh, I really can't say a whole bunch about it because there's so much that will be spoiled. But
Right.
no, he's not the only lantern in the book. No, there's not the lantern that's a planet. At least not in this issue.
Oh, what? Oh.
Oh, I know. It's my favorite one. So yeah, it's a really great book. I know that the early readings of it had kind of lukewarm responses, but keep in mind that was all retailers who are a little bit jaded right now about things. So yeah, I think that readers are going to really love it a lot. But the book that I'm most excited about this week is a Marvel title. Sorry. Marvel Knights 20th is what it's officially called.
Yeah, and that was the other book I'm referring to. And we've said this probably 3 times since we started the show, but there's not a bigger writer right now than Donny Cates.
Donny Cates has
Like
got it.
Like everything he's touched, like people are just drawn to it. He's coming up with, Cosmic Ghost Rider, and he had the whole Thanos versus Thanos storyline and all this stuff. So what can you tell us about that one?
Well, other than the fact, I'm just going to drop that he was
Yeah.
actually texting today about he was script writing for God Country.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, yeah. So I didn't know he was writing the script for the movie, but
Yeah.
I'm excited about that. It basically jumps back into the universe, kind of where it was left off, where no one remembers anything. So if you don't remember anything about Marvel Knights, you're fine. You can totally jump in too, because so all the heroes don't know anything. You actually don't. You're introduced basically to Matt Murdock. He's laying in the cemetery right in front of his tombstone. He knows there's some connection to the tombstone, but he doesn't know what it is. He doesn't know his own name. and someone shows up in the cemetery and basically tells him who he is and tries to conk him over the head to try to knock some sense into him. And it's like one of these crazy, twisty tales in which at the end you get an ending, okay? And there's a baddie that we all love very much that shows up, okay?
Okay.
But, full stop, don't stop there, because 2 pages of ads later, the story just rejoins. It's like there was like a, whoop, that was the answer, false ending, and then you get an even bigger baddie.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
So just know, when you think you've gotten all the awesomeness you can out of this book, it's not over. It's so good. Donnie always delivers. I know that other retailers were like, we don't know how to order this book. I don't know if anyone cares about Marvel Knights anymore, especially a book called Marvel Knights 20th. I'm like, don't you guys learn yet?
No,
It's like,
they haven't.
just whatever you thought you were going to need to order for this book, I told them you should just go way more.
And-
I under-ordered and I over-ordered, and I'm already regretting my under-ordering of over-ordering.
Well, Marvel Knights, for those of you who don't know, was, this was back, it was 20 years ago, back when ratings became like a big thing, printed really big on comics, right? But like
mature
rated T for
audience,
teen,
yeah.
mature. And so it's kind of, for those of you following comics now, sort of like this DC Black Label, where it's like, hey, this is going to be a wilder, crazier story. Whenever you said someone shows up and bops Matt Murdock on the head, my initial thought was Punisher. I don't know if that's it or not, but he's supposed to be in that book. It was it was Daredevil, it was Punisher, it was Black Panther, characters I think like Moon Knight, but just like sort of like the edgier, grittier characters. Yeah. There was also, in addition to that, there was the Max. So I might be like mixing up those two, but I remember. For sure, like Christopher Priest run was under the Marvel Knights of Black Panther. So it's just like an edgier type book. So obviously Donny Cates, especially what he's doing, like what we said with Cosmic Ghost Rider, with Thanos, like just seems to lead perfectly into that. I don't know, when you said it picks up, do you mean it picks up after the original Marvel Knights dropped off? Or
I think so. The way they reference it in the book to say, basically, not as like a lead-in, but within the storytelling itself, made it feel like this is where we left it.
Yeah, and it was sort of like a separate universe, right? Just the same way Ultimate was. Yeah. Like it just had, I mean, I know it had that moniker and like the logo on the top left corner to let you know, like, hey, mature readers or whatever, but I also think it was like different iterations of those characters.
Yes, it's very clear because Matt Murdock's is a ginger.
Yeah.
So it lets you know right away you're looking at a different book.
And it's always been those edgier characters, which I would assume today, like when you're saying people may not be, warm up to that, I think they'll warm up to that immediately. Because especially with like the whole, which Batman book is it that was on the Black Label that caused all the fuss?
The Batman with the potty word.
Yeah, right. But so that book, but like, because you have a lot of people who are just, as crazy as books like going back, like The Preacher can get, like, and The Boys. I'm naming a bunch of Garth Ennis stuff, I realize, but like people are still up.
For it.
People are still up for reading kind of those edgier stories. So I think that's going to be a big one. So those big ones: Marvel Knights 20th and Green Lantern. Any other hidden gems this week?
Let's see. I think those are the 2 big ones that people are going to want to pay attention. There's some little side ones. I think it's called Empty Man. That's a really great story. I think that's the one that's going to get initially missed and then get really hot. It's like a trigger warning book. It's got a lot of like really. So Empty Man is like a disease you can get that makes you super crazy. But the story is really about a family that's trying to hide that their mom has it. And it's like got a lot of violence in it, but it's a heartstring, super violent thing.
And I'm going out on a limb, but is that an Image book?
I believe so. It's either Image or Boom, but I think it's Cullen Bunn.
It's usually like those, especially with the creator-owned stuff, where you can take kind of more of a risk.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think, doesn't Deadpool versus Black Panther come out? They seem to love to put Deadpool up against people in miniseries.
The number 1 came out last week, I believe.
Oh, last week, okay. Well, yeah, those are 2, the Marvel Knights and the Green Lantern I'm almost going to say this have to be can't miss. I mean, because even
Don't
people,
miss those books.
people just love Green Lantern. And some people have favorite Green Lanterns over other ones, but I think just that ring
Yeah.
is always going to draw people in. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week. But tune in next week on Nerd News Now for all the information about the world of nerds and geeks from the Kingdom of Geekdom on Woodlands Online. For Miss Jen and Ashford, this is Mark. Until next time.
Represent.